to the July speaker event here at the Game Dev Group. So first I'm going to start with a few bits, just general catch up on what's going on here and who we are, what we do. So we are a group of game developers and any adjacent areas as well, and generally we meet up once per month and have talks about different areas of the industry, different areas that are connected to game development, and any ways that we can improve. We also hold a bunch of additional events, usually an additional event per month, that range from Bevs and Devs, which is just a networking, drink and chat event. We run some game jams as well as games nights, where we highly encourage people to bring in their indie games and also the game jam games that they have been working on. And the general motto of the Game Dev Group is meet, learn, collaborate. The idea is we come together, we work together to better ourselves and to create wonderful games. And then another one of our mottos is say hello. Generally, everyone's incredibly friendly. Everyone that comes here is incredibly open to having a conversation. So if you're ever in doubt, just go in, introduce yourself, say hi, and you will most likely be very welcomed. Firstly, I'd like to start with a massive thank you to everyone who's come here today, and then I also want to give a massive thank you to all of our speakers. So we have a very big roster of speakers who have come here in the past to give talks, and we've got two amazing speakers to add to that roster today that I'll introduce in just a moment. And then also a very massive thank you to our sponsors. So as you might know, the Game Dev Group worked on Interactive Futures together with Warwickshire County Council and Warwick District Council on Interactive Futures, and as such we are happy to have been working with studios such as our legendary sponsor Maverick Games, Cold Wizard, Playground Games, Rebellion, also our wonderful host here, 1 Mill Street, who have been absolutely amazing, making sure that we've got a space to come together. Crow Capital, with whom we are currently holding a series of finance workshops. So I would say keep an eye out on our meetup, on our social media. We have another event in collaboration with them coming very soon, as well as Black Cat Entertainment. Black Cat is an indie game development studio that is founded by one of the original members of the GEG, Luke Richards, and then we also have Sorcery GG, that is an amazing platform in relation to kind of optimizing the job searching process for you. And then I think this would be the last bit of kind of admin. We want to congratulate the winner of our Game Jam, the Game Jam 5.0, which is the game Future Past. I played it myself. It was an amazing game, looking lovely. The idea was very, very interesting. So I would highly recommend, if you've got interest on what our jammers have done, have a look. But if you don't have much time, I would highly suggest taking up some time and looking at our winner. It would be very much appreciated. And thanks to the development team behind that. And then as you might know, Meetup has a review system. So depending on how you think the event went, we'd be happy to take some feedback. If you drop on there a review, we'd really appreciate that. Obviously, if you've got any criticism, any feedback, we're also perfectly happy to take that. But we're also aware that sometimes people go on there just to write the bad and 1 star and it's been horrible, no one talked to me. So it's just nice to hear both the good and the bad experiences. And then also you can find us on many social platforms. You can find all of them under our link tree. linktree/the GDG. There you can find our LinkedIn, you can find our meetup page. This is where we update all of our upcoming events. That is where you'll find the RSVP process as well. And then also anything from Instagram to Blue Sky to X. We are on most of those platforms. So if you want to engage, we'd be happy to see that. And then it is time to introduce our speakers for tonight. And I am very happy to introduce to you Natasha Dekker and Dr. Christopher Wilson.
Perfect, thank you. Sorry, was just trying to sort things out. So I'm here to, we're here to talk about accessibility isn't a side quest, how HCD makes it the main story. And this is a bit about why we're here. Information's on the screen, not sure if you can see it.
That was pretty terrible from an accessibility point of view.
Wasn't it? Wasn't that awful?
No one pointed it out to us. Everyone was far too polite to say something. So thank you for that. So yeah, we are here today to talk about accessibility. Accessibility in games. We're both not from the game development industry, but both from human factors or UX industry. And today we are going to talk about accessibility in gaming, the fact that there are an estimate of 1 billion gamers globally with disabilities, and fixing accessibility issues early is a huge cost save. There's a couple of links here, you can have a look later, but yeah, fixing them early can be 100 times more expensive, sorry, fixing them late can be 100 times more expensive than doing it during the process.
And just out of interest, if I were to say, I'm talking how I would normally do my presentations now. If I were to ask you about accessibility just in the room, anyone got any thoughts about what that means within games? Anything at all?
I mean, it could be implementing early sort of like modes for people with could be like either accessibility for like fonts or text to speech or controller adaptability. It could be also color blindness and having different modes for color blindness. I know that our design director is colorblind, so he's enforcing this at every step of the project because I can't play the game that we're making, and I'm the design director. So if you don't make it good for colorblind people, then don't.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Also by accessibility, not only account for people with disabilities, but also a whole range of people who may not be the target initially. But for example, the XLS platformer, it has accessibility tools like infinite dashes and such. Not only to support people who may have motor issues or pressing the inputs and timing them, but it's also someone who barely plays games or just getting into them or just sucks at platforms. It's also helping to them.
Thank you so much. Do you both want to come up and talk? I feel like you're totally ready to do that. And just because Chris and I aren't game developers ourselves, that does not mean we are not gamers. My partner is an avid gamer. I have lived through the walking game, I believe it's called Death Stranding. I have lived through the sleeping game, I believe that's called Ghost of Tsushima. The one where he cheats on me, which I believe is The Witcher. So I have suffered through all of these games.
I like a lot of older games. Age of Empires 2, Dungeon Keeper, the original ones. I play a lot of indie games these days, Balatro and Binding of Isaac. So yeah, that's kind of my flavour of games.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Danielle. So, who am I? So, my name is Natasha S. Dekker. I am a lead UX researcher. So, I work in an industry far removed from the one here. I work in financial services. I'm actually not allowed to say where I work. You can find it on LinkedIn, but I'm not allowed. And I've also worked in government. I've worked in my old career, I used to be a librarian. I've worked in tech. So I've worked in a lot of different industries. And I actually remember helping out the guys from Lionhead with a lot of their art requests when they used to want to get research and books on that. So yeah. And over to Chris.
Yeah, I'm probably even further removed from the gaming industry.
No.
I think your microphone's off again. So I work in the automotive industry for a company that also I can't talk about, but you can probably work out who. They're not far from here. They make big cars, very comfortable. I work in the ADAS department, so that's self-driving cars. I make sure people don't die. So it's quite, I save lives. I don't really. But yeah, no, I work in all of the research for all of the ADAS features in the car. Sharing a mic.
So, to go over our agenda, we have a jam-packed session for you today. So we've done our intro, we've done our shit intro, we've done our better intro, and then we're going to dive into an activity. Then Chris is going to take us through a little bit about what we mean by human-centered design. And then in our work, then we're going to dive into accessibility, another activity. I know, we're making you work tonight. And then a bit around laws and legislation, and then a bit more just general examples. And as always, we like to finish with a checklist, something for you to take away and something that you can action straight away. And our general ethos with talks is if you have a question, please put your hand up while we're talking, because it makes us feel alive and that you're engaging with us. Don't worry about interrupting us. It's meant to be kind of a collaborative effort tonight, so please feel free to interrupt us whenever you want. So, our first activity, now I don't know do you all have a pen and a piece of paper, or do you feel comfortable writing notes on your phone?
I don't think many of us have paper.
Why are you saying paper in such a dirty voice, man? Okay, so what I would like you to do is, so this is very much a UX research activity, but it works really well across multiple industries. So what I'd love for you to do is pick a game that you have a lot of feelings for, like just a lot of feelings for, and I would love for you to write a love letter to that game. Now, I want you'll have a few minutes, let me just talk you through what I want you to do. I want you, in your letter, to talk about how this game makes you feel. Does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel warm inside? When you play it, do you get good feelings? Do you like the way the joystick feels in your hand while you're playing it? I don't know, man. Any of these things are completely valid. But take 3 minutes and please write your love letter to the game that you love. Off you go. Say again?
What is this school? Am I going to be marked for this?
Oh, you gotta wait and see.
No, but you might have to go up and read it for everyone.
Spoilers.
You won't have to come up.
I would totally have some other things.
And because it is after the watershed, feel free to make it as inappropriate as you want. Do you like the colours, or do you like the sounds? If I sounded appropriate sometimes. Take another minute Okay, I'm gonna call time. Now, who wants to read theirs out? Don't worry, I'll bring the mic. Actually, Chris, you can bring the mic over.
Hopefully this one worked.
Who wants to read theirs out?
I will pick on you.
None of you are making eye contact with me. That's super cute. That's super cute. Chris, go and find someone.
So sorry.
I don't know if Dr. Knox should hand over to him.
You can't pass the mic, my guy.
You've done this to yourself.
I'll pick you down with me. Okay, I can't yet read. Also, I have pen and paper. Covered up from production so we understand how to be prepared. Okay, so I got a bona fide. You is good. You make me like music and I am deaf. You look good. Good visuals.
I love that. Thank you. Round of applause. Well done. Could we have one more, please?
I'm always happy to be the guinea pig if nobody else would enter forward.
That's also called volunteering there.
Right. Dear Final Fantasy XIV, I do love that you let me create a very cute cat girl, dress her up, and be a fierce warrior of light that dodges AoEs and saves the universe. I love the feeling of finally beating that boss that I was prodding for weeks.
Thank you so much. Round of applause. Well done. Okay, so thank you so much to the two of you. Now, how did it feel to write a love letter to a thing that you play, that you enjoy, that you love? How did that feel?
I actually have to remember why I was.
Good. I hope that energy isn't in your relationship, if you're in a relationship. Anyone else?
That's my husband, right?
Anyone else? How did it feel? Like, what was the hardest thing about writing out a thing that you love, about something that you play, that you connected with, that you've immersed yourself in for any number of hours? What was hard? What was easy?
Abstracting it was hard because the
Wait.
best game. Not too much on. Abstracting it was difficult because the best games are the ones that actually get you into a flow, where you actually engage with the entire experience rather than breaking it down by mechanical by experience.
That's a really great answer. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other comments on that?
I got really not far at all into this because my hard part was picking a thing. Like,
Okay.
because I consume games as media a lot, I
Yeah.
play a variety of different things all the time, and as soon as you say, what's your favourite game? I'm like, oh, Autonomous. So like, just getting over that boundary was already like quite difficult because there's so much game in the world, I guess.
I love that. Thank you. So, as you can see on the screen, we are now going to flip it around. And that game that you just spoke about how much you loved it, and for those of you that struggle to say how much you love it, I got you. You're now going to break up with that game. This game has given you the ick in a severe way. And now I want you to break up with that game. I want you to talk about all the things that it's done that you hate. I want you to talk about all the things that it has done that has driven you maybe into the arms of another game. I don't know. Take another 5 minutes. Okay, time check. Maybe 2.5 minutes to talk to write your breakup letter. Maybe it cheated on you. Do you know what I mean? It's changed, man. It's changed. Another 30 seconds for your breakup letter. Quite enjoying the people that have already finished. Have you just said, fuck off?
It's got AI to write it.
Very good. pens down, fingers stop tapping. You know the drill. Would anyone like to volunteer their breakup letter? Okay.
Dear Blueprints, I used to love you a lot. I really did. But after reaching the latest stage of our relationship, I really can't deal with your randomness anymore. You're so unpredictable, and every new day we spend together is becoming a drag. It's not me, it's you. I've moved on and dating the alters. But wish you all the best. Love, Rob.
Amazing, round of applause. Anyone else? Go on, one more.
Yeah, go on.
Dear Ratchet and Clank, your movement mechanics in combat suck. It took you until the third installment to fix it, after which you lost the vision which made your original universe so compelling.
Well done, very good. Okay, any thoughts on your breakup letter? How easy, hard, thoughts, feelings you've had when you were writing that?
It actually felt easier, I think. I think finding the points of frustration is, I think we remember our frustrations more, it's easier to remember the thing that negatively affected us. They're also often more concrete than the thing that we love. The thing that we love is just a general feeling, the thing that we hate is often very specific and measurable.
Yeah, and that's why whenever I do this exercise, I always start with love, because it's a lot harder for anyone, not just the games, but anything that we use. It's a lot harder to put into words how this thing impacts our lives. So that was a very nice UX research exercise that you have just done to warm us up. I am now going to hand over to Chris to talk a little bit about UX and HCD.
Thank you. So yeah, I do the boring slides. I do the boring parts of the presentation, if you can tell. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, we come from the UX space. We do user experience. User experience is the holistic feeling, the entire journey from end to end, from when you first load a game, from when you're done with it, and all of the interactions in between. The human-centered design process. This is the process that we follow. It's iterative. Mostly it's empathetic. And it's the methodology, but really we can map this out as a process, but in reality it's more of a philosophy that you have to follow, because nothing is a process. I don't know how many processes you have in your own companies, but they never get followed, and it's more the philosophy that you follow. Accessibility, this is a good example of it because the slide's broken and it's covered some of the text. Accessibility is the foundation of a really good UX. If you're not accessible, then you're breaking the user experience for a large portion of your user base. So the process that no one really follows, but we all strive to follow, it starts with empathizing with your users or with your humans. You define what you're trying to create. You try and write those use cases. You try and write those requirements. You ideate around it. You prototype it. And you test it, and all of this time you're always feeding back and trying to redefine or re-empathize or re-ideate until you run out of time, and then you have to publish something. That's effectively how it works in every industry, I think. So yeah, that's
Any questions, comments on that? Has anyone seen variations of this before? Some nods. I love a nod, thank you. I like to be validated. Anyone else? Okay, next slide. So, again, this is very UX researchy, but what I try to do is I try to overlay it with some of the things that I know happen within game studios. So, obviously, all of these things are activities that I would do within my industry to understand the motivations, behaviours of the people that I am designing for. And from a games perspective, it still goes into player motivations and playtesting. So usability testing and playtesting. So I've got buddies at PlayStation on their testing team, on their usability team. It's a little bit different. It's very intense. PlayStation has a very rigorous, specific way where they conduct their playtesting. It's very good. The only other team that comes close is probably at EA, I would say. A lot of companies got rid of those teams. Won't talk about that here. But the thing is, the principles are the same, right? You cannot make a game in a vacuum. vacuum. You cannot test a game in a vacuum. Just because you think a game is good doesn't mean a game is good, because you are not your player. Much as in my company we say you are not your user, you are not your player. Just because you who loves, I don't know man, like, what's the genre? Give me a game genre.
Strategy.
Yeah, so you love a strategy game, and that doesn't mean that the people you're designing for, A, know what a strategy game is, have the same kind of touch points as to what a strategy game means. So you undertake these activities to ensure that the thing that you're designing, the thing that you're creating, the thing that you want to sell, actually has an audience that can play it, can understand it, and in essence, is going to buy the thing that you're making. So I'm not saying do all of these things, because no company does all of these things, but I think most of you will probably be familiar with things like focus groups, interviews, the usability testing, maybe things like eye tracking, I imagine, for understanding how players are tracking things on screen, tools, and all that kind of thing. Thoughts, comments?
I think you're giving the gaming industry too much credit.
Oh, I know, darling, I know, but I wanted to be positive. Any other thoughts or comments on this? Anyone? Is this very familiar? Shall I end the presentation now?
I just have a question about, obviously my eyes are
attracted to the concept testing and the participatory design that is outside of that
Yes.
great thing. So what's the meaning of the great thing and what is that outside of it?
Great question, great catch. So, whatever's inside the green area is basically what majority of organizations are doing. So, it don't include games, but if you're looking at my company, his company, majority of organizations, even Big Pharma, if I'm honest with you, will be doing pretty much everything that's in there. Who here has gone onto a supermarket website? Yeah, so supermarket websites, they are all about card sorting, because that's information architecture. If you want to understand concepts and how people sort concepts, and you know all those drop-down menus, that's information architecture, that's card sorting, okay? Anyone, let's have a look. What does diary study mean to anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
Tracking behaviour over time, keeping records of your activity and your motivation to do things.
I love that. I love that you've taken such a beautiful thing and made it very scientific. Love that for us. In essence, yes. But I would say whenever we use diary studies, it's a really rich way to understand how people interact with your product or your service. So organizations that tend to use diary studies tend to be things like Netflix. A lot of streaming services use diary studies and they use external companies. And basically what it is you basically get someone to film, it's now filming, you actually used to write them, but now you get people to film how they're feeling, what they're thinking over the course of a week, over the course of a month, and you can actually chart their emotional reaction to it. So if you were to test this with games, and if you had like a game that kind of ruins your life, like maybe like Red Dead or God of War, where you're sinking in 10,000 million hours, you could probably use it to play test it to see how people feel as they progress through the game and understand the highs and lows. Like that's how I would apply it if you had the time and the money. Say again?
It's Gogglebox, basically.
Yeah, that's a good shout. That's why Gogglebox is so popular, because we love to watch people watching things.
I interpreted that in a weird way. You do people therapy. It's like, come talk about your feelings every day. Like, people use that therapy.
A little bit, yes, but that is not my job. And the reason why concept testing and participatory design are outside of that is because not many companies have, especially now, as I'm sure you all know, they don't have the time and the money and the effort to just build concepts and test them and then chuck them away. Like, it's expensive to do concept testing. We always talk about fail fast and stuff like that. No company is failing fast. No one enjoys doing that, right? No one does. And participatory design is such a unique skill, but again, it requires to get your players, your customers to come in, and they actually design the product with you. And again, that takes time, that takes effort, and sometimes stakeholders aren't always on board with that. So that's why they're outside the bubble, because they're not the most common processes. The only industry that uses participatory design is probably government at this point, I would say. Thoughts, comments?
I did a bit in my PhD, which is automotive. So.
Yeah, all right.
We do a lot of concept testing in automotive. We do a lot less of this stuff when we're designing cars. It's a lot more concept testing. But yeah, that's a good illustration. Special.
Over to you, Chris.
Oh, it is, yes. So we're going to be a bit self-indulgent and talk about ourselves for a little bit. Not giving away the company I work for, this is an image I found on the internet, which perfectly describes what I do. So I guess the difference between building webs and apps and games and things on screens, my job is very much about designing for very multimodal interfaces. So we have clusters, we have switchgear, we have head-up display, we have a central touchscreen with all of your temperature control buttons on, which is a great idea. We have speakers and audio, and we have haptics, so seat vibrating and things like that. That's that's all I was saying for that slide. And this is where I wanted my notes. Something else we have to deal with a lot in the automotive industry is complexity. And how you handle complexity. So you could have one interface with lots of buttons on, it's very hard to find, or you can have multiple layers with multiple buttons on. And why we really care about this in automotive is when you're trying to do something on a touchscreen while you're driving, doing things on the touchscreen isn't your primary task. Not killing people with your car is your primary task. So we want to avoid complexity and minimize eyes-off-road time. So this is why this is so important to us. I think that's all I was going to.
Sure, do you want to go back to the car and talk a bit about the car?
I could talk about cars all day.
The reason I wanted us to go back to the car is just because we are in Leamington. Obviously, one of the sponsors is obviously all about that car life. And I was just wondering, had anyone considered the actual design and makeup of a car from the perspective that Chris just spoke about?
I haven't been because I worked on Formula One in Birmingham. So.
Upstaged again. I'm glad you didn't have the microphone for that.
I think the reason that I wanted us to come back to the site, just because we're talking about accessibility, and I will freely say that I myself struggle with too much sensory input when I'm in a car, which is why I don't feel comfortable driving on a motorway. There's too much happening. And something that Chris and I have spoken about is why that's the case, and the evolution of modern cars, and what that means. And for anyone who did drive here tonight, is that something that you think about? And the reason I ask is because the thought process of how you interact with your car controls, it's not that different to how players are interacting with the game, with the controls, and things like that. Do you have anything to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, fine.
I'll add something there just quickly.
Good.
So the cognitive load of car environments is changing so much over the last couple of decades. So for people of an older generation, like my dad, he's basically driving a 20-year-old car, and if and when that car fails, any modern car is going to be overwhelming for him because the interface has radically changed from 2 decades ago.
Yeah, sorry about that. I actually have a very similar story. So my parents recently got a new car, very similar, upgraded after a long time, not quite 20 years, but it has moved on a lot. And when my mum got into the car one day, she thought she turned the car on, but it was a hybrid. The car rolled into the road thinking that she could drive it away, and it didn't move away because she hadn't turned the car on. This is a real problem in the automotive industry, especially with electric cars and hybrid cars, because you can't hear when the engine's on. The control interface is very different from even 5-10 years ago. So many opportunities for distraction. I'm not going to bore everyone with upcoming regulation, legislation. There are ways this is being prevented in the future, so don't worry too much. But there is a kind of a time period right now where we're in a bit of a tough time for a car industry. But yeah.
I think that's fair. I think the reason why I wanted us to come back to this is I just want you to hold that in your heads, because when we talk about accessibility, and obviously it is about games, but it is in things like this, and it's not just people who you assume might have accessibility issues. So this is kind of like my sweet spot. So this is literally what I spend half my job doing. So I work with a lot of product owners, business analysts, lots of people with titles that relate to agile. That's what I do in my head. And this is what they think the cat wants. Okay, they want a multi-dimensional, multi-story climbing mechanism that will add to their cognitive stimulation. Right? That's what they think the cat wants. The cat wants to sit in the box it came in. All right? That's your player. That is your user. All right? This, don't be wrong. There are going to be people that think there are going to be cats that are like, yeah, I'm all about that life. The majority of cats, they're happy with that, man. So why are we building this when people want that? Let that sit in your head. And no, I don't work for this company. I'm just saying that because I wouldn't put that out there. But I do work in banking. So a lot of my job is around making this whole thing more interesting. And I know it's finances, it's money. How could it be interesting? Who here has a Monzo account? Shocker. Interesting. Okay, who has a Starling account? Okay. Who has a NatWest account? Okay, Lloyd's. Okay, this is shocking. I am not used to this much representation from high street banks. But look, hold that in your head. So this is how we relate it to games. Okay. So when Chris and I, the industries that we work in, they are very utility-driven industries, okay? When you get in your car, obviously, barring people that actually love driving their car, but the aim of getting in a car is you go from A to B, okay? You get in your car, you drive somewhere, you get out your car, you go back and you go somewhere, okay? That's what you do. With banking, again, that's the example on there, it is a very linear utility experience. You go in, you want to check your transactions, you want to check how much money you've got, you do that, you get out. The thing with games, and a lot of you will be familiar with the concept of game loops and having loops within loops when you're playing and in your games, and the best games have the best game loops because they keep you involved, they keep you immersed. That is, what am I trying to say? That is a circular experience and it keeps it sticky. And the reason why I wanted to include this diagram is, A, to show the difference in our industries, because the point of games is to keep you playing. And something that my industry is trying to do is to keep you hooked on your banking app. And the thing I keep telling my team is that banking is a utility. People don't want to spend time looking at their money, they just want to know that they have it. They don't want to know how much they don't have. That is not a nice feeling for people. But with games, you are building experiences within experience within experiences. So you blink and before you know it, 10 hours have passed because you have sunk so much time into that game because you love it. And if you think about that, think of the time that you're spending in that game. Don't you want it to be fun? And don't you want it to be open to so many people?
Let's talk about accessibility. I guess that's what
We got there.
Okay. So 16.1 million people in the UK have a disability in the 22-23 financial year. So almost a quarter of the total population. 11% of children are disabled, 23% of working age adults, and 45% of pension age adults. Clearly this is something that, as you get older, you're more likely to have a disability. I think also what these statistics don't cover are all the people that have temporary disabilities, because they're not registered as disabled. You could damage your eyesight and have poor eyesight for a couple of months. You wouldn't be labelled as disabled, but you'd be going through a lot of the same experiences. Yeah, anything you want to ask?
I think, I don't want anyone to, oh no, you had your hand up.
Question. Do these stats include people with disabilities that aren't registered? Is there an estimate of that? For example, a lot of people with learning disabilities or learning differences don't get registered until adult life. Do those stats reflect that?
I've got a slide I think Chris did the maths for me on this. Basically, 1 in 4 people have a disability, which someone worked this out for me in the room, but that means how many people in this room have a disability or some sort of disability. Thank you. I didn't want you to out yourself, but thank you for being so open.
3?
3 people in this room will have a disability. So just frame that when you go into work, when you think about your families, that is the environment that we work in. Especially to your point, a lot of adults are now getting diagnosed as we get nearer to 40 because we have more disposable income to pay for these diagnoses that are a lot of money that can't be bought in the NHS. I got you. So when we say disability, and exactly what Chris said, there are so many different types of disabilities, and the science on this is changing all the time. And just as a fun aside, if we're not going to talk about AI today because I feel like that's been done to death. But the only thing I will say is that AI is very much targeted at an able-bodied neurotypical experience. And one of the things that we bring as humans is that we understand neurodivergence and we have that richness of experience. So I just wanted to make that really clear. So I won't go through everything on the slide, but what I want you to pay attention to is exactly what Chris said, the temporary disabilities. So for instance, I was in a car accident in 2018. I had such bad whiplash that I couldn't dress myself. My partner had to dress myself. It wasn't a good time. It was actually just quite embarrassing, a bit shameful if I'm honest. And that was for 6 months. But I was still fine, right? And there are loads of people like that. And the two, and you mentioned it earlier by the way, thank you so much for the spoilers. These are the 2 that are the most ones that people tend to pay attention to, right? So people who are blind and people who have some version of hearing loss. And dexterity issues are getting more reported now with things like MS. A lot more people have MS now, so that impacts the way that they can hold a controller, the way they can drive. It gets so severe that you can't drive. And also when we talk about cognitive impairment, so there you go. 1.3 million people have dyslexia or some version of dyslexia because like all things, these things occur on a scale. So one person's version of dyslexia will not be someone else's version of dyslexia or dyspraxia. Out of interest, does anyone know what the reading age in England is? Those of you building narrative games, I am shocked. Any takers? Reading age in England?
Okay, that question again. Sorry.
What's the reading age? So the age...
A lot lower than we think it is.
That's not an answer.
It is. Relevant answer.
Any takers?
9.
Well done. 9 is the average reading age in England, and just to put that into perspective, that is the style of writing in the sun. I don't know why you're laughing, because that's the average reading age of people in England. And think about the things that you create, the writing in your games. That is who you should be targeting it to, because that's the age. The Guardian is age 14. Just to put it into perspective. Anything to add, Chris? Okay. Questions on this? Nice? Okay.
Yep.
So to break down all of our lovely diagrams, 4 pillars of accessibility: motor, visual, auditory, and cognitive. And I think we've covered that really well, and now we're going to shift into thinking about what that looks like in a gaming perspective, if the icons didn't give it away. Over to you, Chris.
So yeah, this is the money side. This is all data from Scope that did a whole bunch of research. Some of it focused on gaming and the cost of gaming. £16 billion is the average online spending power of disabled people in the UK, which is a pretty huge market. And yeah, the second 2 are more focused on gaming. 40% of disabled gamers have bought games they haven't been able to play due to poor accessibility. I think that's pretty terrible. And 50% of disabled gamers say that the information on the accessibility of the game has affected their decision to buy it. So some games shout about their accessibility a bit more than others. Some don't talk about it at all. clearly it is a factor that influences the purchase of games. Yeah, I don't know if anyone in the audience has bought a game or not bought a game because they thought of the accessibility issues.
And I'll just say, remember the first slide that Chris shared, the good one, not the bad one, around the money that is lost by not including any sort of accessibility fixes, considerations when you first start designing your game. So for those of you that are like, oh no, I'll add it in later. No, it's the first one, we'll do that for release 2, it's fine, it's MVP. You are burning your money, okay? Like, you want a game that's gonna get funding, get a grant, but you're still making it for like your generic gamer. What are you doing? Why are you not baking in accessibility requirements, diversity requirements, anything like that? Because you are literally throwing away money, you are missing out on audiences. Hollywood can afford to do it because they're just committing insurance fraud all over the shop. Hey, Warner Brothers. But why are you doing that? Last I heard, the games industry was not in a good place, so why are you still designing for the same type of person?
I mean, birthday is a good place to design for disabled people. Probably not. Like, again, to give you context, I actually do accessibility. Okay, I'm not going to get that. Sorry, yeah, so the background is accessibility, like literally my day job games. So there's a lot of like, okay, it's not perfect and I have to work with a lot of different developers.
Yeah, of course.
All over the place and on their understanding. So like things like this are really valuable because it helps developers just even get the start of like
No, of course.
But yeah, even the given the fact of hey, this you really are throwing away money is very true. Like when they tell people, oh, if you have these accessibility tags that you get on storefronts, instantly you'll get more
100%.
traffic, more money. It's been proven, it's got data to back up that if you just have these tags, any tags, you get more traffic on disabled players like myself to basically buy our game. But even still, it becomes the first thing that they'll cut on scope and go, we don't have time to do this, let's cut the accessibility. It's wild that it's the first thing that they go on the shopping block because again, inherently most developers do not fully understand, so they don't understand the importance of doing accessibility, taking it all in and doing it at the start. But they think it's just a throwaway thing. Oh, it's a feature, we can cut it, rather than viewing it as like a true, just a part of course design, what you should do because it's good for your project. It makes quality games, it makes you more sellable, so there's more community in that. But I can end up running for hours, so I'm going to go back to you and your talk.
No, and thank you so much for sharing. If it helps, I don't think any industry has kind of sussed it, if I'm honest. I work in such a regulated industry that we have to, because we work with so many types of vulnerable people that essentially if people can't access their money, it then becomes a bigger problem, right? Can't pay their bills, can't access things, it's a problem. And I think with games it becomes harder because and I appreciate it, right? You've got your design milestones. You have to think, okay, do I create this game where they can, I don't want to give it away because you've got an activity coming up, where we can do X, Y, Z thing, or do we focus on building out the combat because that's going to be what drives our generic user base? Like, I completely get it. I just think that there are decisions to be made, and I do think that, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, and I think also from an indie games perspective, where you do have the freedom and the ability to have a little bit more fun and a little bit more leeway to design things that are more accessible, like why wouldn't you? But it's your turn now. We've done enough.
So, activity 2. This one's going to be a bit longer, it's going to be a bit more involved. Working groups, if you can, if you're near people. About 10 minutes per activity. So what we've got here are 3 personas. So these are taken from Stanford University. So we've lightly modified them to make them a bit more relevant. But these, again, not very accessible slide. Sorry about that. These personas have been slightly adapted. They're written for web and app users, so you'll have to think a little bit creatively how it applies to video games. This is Aeon. He's vision impaired. He could be partially sighted or blind. He could be injured in the eye, like I mentioned earlier. It could be a temporary thing. He appreciates things like predictable patterns, keyboard navigation, text equivalent to all content, and he likes to avoid excessive scrolling or scrolling in multiple directions or unlabeled controls. I think with vision, we started quite an easy one. It's something that's a bit easier to relate to when you think of accessibility. So we've got a design task, a design brief, which again, not entirely readable.
Oh, Canva, you've really done us dirty tonight, haven't you?
Apologies for that. So it says, how would you adapt a skill tree to be inclusive of vision impaired players? So think of games like Path of Exile, World of Warcraft, Assassin's Creed. Skill trees are often quite large, contains a large web of information, often very small icons, very small details. So the challenge is spend the next 10 minutes or so amongst groups. We made sure that we may lengthen it depending on how it goes. And we want to see some design solutions or ways we could improve games like this for our vision impaired persona.
I do have a question because you're mentioning the handheld mobile device user, but these games are very typically console and PC, which is a very different interaction. So are we supposed to use that design brief for PC players, mobile players?
Have some fun with it.
We're not too precious. We're not too precious, yeah.
But yeah, do you want to get into some groups or just, I mean, you're kind of already sat in couples, but do you just want to make sure that you're sat with someone so you can work on it together? Maybe sketch something, maybe talk through something. This involves movement, everyone. Is everyone, yeah? Okay. So, Chris, do you just want to reiterate the task for everyone, please?
Yes, so the design brief, how would you adapt a skill tree to be inclusive of vision impaired players? Consider games like Path of Exile, World of Warcraft, Assassin's Creed, and yeah, just think of those skill trees that you've seen in many games, and how you'd improve it for someone who's vision impaired.
Off you go, you've got about 10 minutes. Yeah. Oh, really? all our talks are like this. I absolutely refuse to talk at people for an hour and a half. That's awful.
And one of the principles is to talk.
Yeah.
Saves us some time as well.
I think everyone seems to be enjoying it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Usually, like the people that come regularly to our events are very open to like exploring different areas of like game development, like adjacent stuff. We did have some talks about AI as well, and like even though it's like a very controversial topic, we had
Doesn't
quite
mean you shouldn't
people
talk about
turn
it,
up
right?
and like wanting to have a conversation about it, and like legalities around it.
Yeah.
So we've got like people that are like genuinely interested in like the whole process.
Nice. Oh, I love it. Right, should we keep an eye on the time? Did you remember what time we started?
A couple of minutes ago.
Okay. You have this great skill of making very complex things seem very easy. I'm envious of it.
Really? I just don't like talking so much.
I mean, I bumped into the interface issue like on Tuesday.
Right, in your car.
No, in like, so like I've got a full driving license in Europe. I've been driving there for a while, and I was like, I'm getting a car here, and I was like, let me do a few lessons.
Yeah.
And let's say I learned on a car that's probably older than me.
Oh. I don't know how old you are, but I feel like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 90s.
Okay.
Car from the 90s. I like the car was powered by gas, not petrol.
Oh.
Oh, LPG, yeah.
It was like an old Vauxhall Astra.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's the car that I learned on, and then I've had like some slightly more modern ones.
Good.
But all of them, like none of them have had like proper like, none of them have had digital interfaces. And I got in the teacher's car, and it was all digital, and like the feedback on the like gear stick was completely different because I'm used for it to be like a lot more rough and for it to be a lot more feedback if I'm actually in or if I'm not. So I did a mistake that I've never done since I finished my driving lessons, which was going into third instead of first.
Oh.
I do that all the time, I have to say.
No, but I've got our car isn't. We've got like our car's like 10 years old, so and it's a Honda.
I'm buying a 15-year-old car. That's all I can afford right now, and it's also really similar to the car that I had before, so it's
Nice.
I know what's going on, and like at least it's gonna be like more and less like stress it down.
Yeah.
Like I know the car, I know how it behaves.
Honestly, it took me so long to learn how to drive. Like, Chris knows the whole story about how long it took me to drive. So, yeah, I get it. 5 minutes? 6 minutes?
I think about 5 minutes, yeah. I don't think we need 10 minutes.
You've got 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes. It's hot.
At least it cooled down a little bit.
Yeah. I want to walk around and see what everyone's doing.
So they're starting to regulate the cuts or that car.
Yeah, kind of. They're a bit. The kind of hot topic at the moment is the temperature controls.
Okay.
So about 50% of modern cars now, put all of their temperature controls in the touchscreen, which is very difficult to use when you're driving because your hands are There's been a bit of a backlash, but I think Euro NCAP, who do like safety assessments of cars, there's new rules coming out to say you must put critical controls as physical buttons again. So it's kind of reversing what everyone has done over the last 5 years.
You've got like feedback of like a button and whereas with touchscreen it's like I need to see that as well.
Yeah, it's more eyes off road time, which is the issue. Yeah, I mean with a dial you can just touch it and then look at the road and adjust it. Much easier. Yeah. I mean generally in the automotive industry there is very little accessibility guidelines, rules and regulations. It's a free-for-all, really. So yeah, getting good usability and good design into cars is actually quite tough because it has to be thought internally rather than using external regulations.
Because a lot of the accessibility is modern and cutting edge and they want it to be modern and cutting edge.
Yeah, it depends on the brand. I mean, the company I work for definitely wants it to be modern, but I think some of the more kind of consumer brands, they probably do lean more into more accessible.
Yeah, I think because I'm getting a Skoda, I'm mostly doing Skodas. Like the new ones don't seem to be like I've got a list or something. They don't look like they've put too much digital. Yeah, it's full pass.
Do you have the
No, I should have thought that. Okay, everyone, let's bring it back into the room. And back into the room. There we go. Okay. Who would like to share? I'm so sorry, I made it sound like a choice. Either volunteer or volunteer. Go ahead.
So one of the things that we were discussing is that skill trees, tech trees in general tend to be very much cursor focused. They tend to be driven towards point and click and hover focusing. So for anyone miss out on the ability to know where they are relative to the HUD and whatever it is, and they're also going to miss out on the ability to know the difference between hovering over and getting your basic information versus or kind of pop-up or tooltip that gives you a secondary set of information. So normally when I make the basic set of information, that's just like the title or the description of a skill or something, and then the secondary information would be the cost of it or the secondary activities and skills you get. So one of the things that I'll be pitching is that whereas a skill tree tends to be kind of spider web style, if you instead navigate with keyboard, then you would be probably tabbing your way through, and the relationship between what you see on screen and what you're interacting with on the keyboard doesn't necessarily have to relate at all. You can just tab your way through from tier 1, which could be for the visual user in the centre of the screen, and then tier 2, which is the next outer ring or whatever. And as long as that's narrated by a screen narration, then you get the information you need more visually. And the other thing we were saying as well is that you get audio feedback as well, so it's multimodal. So that if you're on tier 1, I'm calling that the top level, you can get some kind of audio cue that's in a low tone, and then when you nest down into a level, you get a different pitch, and slightly higher pitch, and when you get to the children and the grandchildren of the thing, you can just get different feedback to let you know quickly where you are. I'm rambling now.
No, it's fine. I have one question. What if I want to go from tier 1 all the way down to tier 3, tier 4, but I don't want to have to go through all the options and get all that feedback because I'll find it really confusing.
So what you would do is the screen narrator would only, if you are going to go with screen narration, you would need to make sure that it doesn't narrate the entire thing because that's going to drive screen reader users absolutely insane.
Okay.
So you need to have just the basics and then some kind of input to trigger more detail.
Nice. Okay. Anyone else like to share? Gentleman in the armchair, you've been so quiet all night, and then we made eye contact.
Thank you very much. So when we were talking about the UI, obviously you said it was partially sighted or blind, and it's generally said that someone that's lacking in one sense is heightened than the others. So we also considered like going for like audio solutions. So for example, obviously on a skill tree you'd have skills that are unlocked and locked. So we said maybe like sound effects to denote whether they're locked and unlocked, obviously. And then another thing we considered is the feeling of them. So maybe like vibration patterns or haptic feedback, and maybe consider that into it as also. And then one idea I had just as it was closing actually was to maybe get the community involved in it and open up an accessibility API, which could also allow encourage people to like make their own versions of it, which they could implement into the game later on. And that was pretty much what we covered.
I love a dark horse, and that was very nice. Haptic feedback is one of my favourite things in games. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think to feel it in your hands. Thank you. Okay, don't worry, we've got many more, so everyone will get a chance. Don't worry, we've got so much more. So, meet Elaine. Elaine has a motor impairment, so she could be arthritic or have Parkinson's disease, or potentially injured in the hand or arm area. And because she has a long commute, right? So she's often playing her games on the train or on the tube. So we've got a commuter gamer, okay? She loves a keyboard shortcut, larger touch targets, alternatives to drag and drop. Drag and drop is not accessible, everyone, just putting that out there. And keyboard interactions for all features. So, no precision interactions, no repetitive manual tasks, and no timed interactions. Just take a second to absorb that. Your task. Propose a new input scheme for a 2D fighting game to make combo execution more accessible. So we're thinking Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, inability to perform rapid directional inputs. I know Chris wrote this. And potentially hand fatigue and button reach. reach, right? Because they've got arthritis, potentially have arthritis or Parkinson's. Questions? Yes.
Would this fighting game be multiplayer? Because potentially having those implementations could be an advantage in certain circumstances.
Something for you to explore, potentially. Okay, so let's just recap. So we have the lovely Elaine, probably playing on her commute because she still loves to game, even though she has got arthritis and it's got progressively worse over her life. And she loves a 2D fighting game. But how can we make that combo execution just a bit nicer for Elaine? How can we make her commute just that little bit nicer so she can play those games? You have another 5 to 6 minutes. Off you go.
I would just say though that if Elaine is playing on the train, she's not going to play multiplayer again because there is no one sitting.
You don't know life.
She's hotspotting, man. What are you saying?
No, but like, with response to the multiplayer issue and the advantage, the only advantage you can give, if you're going to play on the train, you're not going to play a multiplayer game. Like,
This sounds like a problem for your group to discuss, though.
But even then, there's a chance the train won't even turn up.
These are small group activities.
No, I feel the group needs to still keep arguing about it. There's already been like
We've got one more of these.
I'm sorry, something came up and I was It's not like a thing. Just wait that we can get in. Okay.
Got about half a minute left, everyone. Okay, everyone, let's come back in the room because I think some of you are just chatting shit now because you finished the task. I keep making eye contact with you. I know it's not you. We just keep making eye contact. Okay, so, first of all, how did you find that? Rob's nodding at me. That's not helpful, done. Any takers, some words? Yes? Don't tell me what you did, I just want to know how you found it.
One thing that I noticed that it's difficult to come up with quite completely new input schemas that we requested. Like a few times we bounced back to like existing conventions, like how we can adapt that to a disability rather than trying to come up with a new thing, which is difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Who wants to share their solution or potential solution?
You can start to set up the mic.
Oh, I see what you've done. Go on. Go on. I'll allow it.
No, I was just going to bounce back on what he said on saying like, sometimes some of the decisions or solutions we came up with was like not trying to adapt an existing game, so like not how do we adapt Street Fighter for this, but how do we write a brand new game with a totally different philosophy that actually takes that type of player into account. So, you know, there was an idea of maybe having it turn-based instead, right? And yes, if you think Street Fighter turn-based, absolutely not. This is a totally different game, but why can we not have a turn-based 2D fighting game? And actually have it, we thought about like reusing on the same button, like if there's a combo system, replacing, if you have a button on your screen, on your hotbar, or one input, always being the one input giving you the next action in the combo, so having a one button combo as opposed to having a combo being X square, triangle, X circle. And then that auto replaces. And what was the last one I came up with? Oh yeah, the macros, thank you. Pre-programmable macros, and that the ability for the user to, before they jump into the game, before they jump into a battle, to be able to program their own combos on one button, and maybe that executes, they can program the timer, so like you've got wait time, so like 0.2 seconds, they would know, you know, they would learn the animation time, they can go into a practice round to learn those kind of like, oh, the animation takes 0.3 seconds, so after 0.3 seconds I can do, or even have the game auto-calculate that timing.
So, because I'm a dick, so how long is her train journey to allow her to do all of those things?
My question back to you is, would she do this on the first time she plays the game? With macros, you define them once and then they're here forever, right? But yes, it puts a little bit of input at the start when you first put the game.
Yep.
You might revisit them every now and then, you learn a new character, you learn a new fighting mode, you might want to revisit those, but she's not going to do this every day, she's going to do it once and for all.
Nice, good answer. Thank you. One more.
If we answer, then you can leave us alone.
You keep looking at me now, like, I don't know what you're saying.
Because I'm worried about what the next one's going to be, even worse. Yeah, I find this one really interesting because I think there have been examples already in the game industry of people trying to solve this sort of thing. So one of the things I sort of we talked about was, I think it's Mortal Kombat, that sort of did the sort of more like Street things, learned the 3 mappable like inputs, that's the main thing. She's got them, she's got them to be able to try out different things. If she gets fatigued in certain ways, then she can try, you know, choosing what's practice, where the pain points are for her. But yeah, it's that sort of thing of just coming up with like ways to be adaptable. It's a great way for Elaine to have the best time on the train. The train is 1.5 hours.
And also, thank you for saying having the best time, because one of the things I've noticed some of you haven't said is that they would have fun while they were playing. So it's all well and good to talk about the technical things, it's all well and good to talk about the accessibility requirements, but is the person playing it having fun?
She's still a gamer, just like you.
Right, Chris?
It's like all good boss battles, they come in threes. So this is the final persona, the final brief. This is Camilla. She's cognitively impaired. So this could be ADHD, this could be autistic, this could be dyslexic, or she could be tired after a very long day, like today. She could be very new or inexperienced. It could be the first game she's ever played. She appreciates simple, well-structured layouts, plain language, just the right level of information, contextual support and guidance, and she would avoid assuming she remembers details. So think kind of longer Death Stranding style games where you have to remember. Complex workflows, large blocks of dense text, or anything with images. The design brief, redesign the game with timed missions or puzzles to remove the stress of a countdown timer. So games such as Overcooked, Dead Rising, or Puzzle Rooms, so think like Zelda.
Hated Zelda, but that's because I'm very close to this persona, I should say. Like I think, how do you create a game that creates complexity and fun without requiring your player to have to think about everything that they're doing and retain the information? So this is not, I don't know, what's a ridiculous game where you have to do this? One that's not on there. Like anyone? What's a game which is just so cognitively awful that it makes you cry and you didn't? Yeah, go ahead.
Any game that requires you to reference a wiki.
Oh, very good, very good. I think there was some feeling when you said that. So yeah. So this is your final brief of the night. I think Camilla, I would put, how old would we say Camilla is? Any age? Young adult?
45.
40, oh, okay. Okay, Camilla is 45. We're gonna make this fun for you. Camilla is 45. She has just got into gaming because she's been watching her partner do it. But as we've seen, she does have a few cognitive disabilities, but she still wants to game because she wants to share this experience with her partner. So off you go. What would that game look like?
While I don't have, do I maybe have ADHD? Potentially. But the other stuff, very much so. Because I like games like Untitled Goose Game.
Chill games, yeah. I think the interesting one with this is, it is a game of timed missions.
Yeah, and removing the stress of a countdown timer, yeah.
That's the whole point of the game.
Yeah. How do you win? Like what's... Because then you end up with things like Stardew Valley, right?
Well, I asked Copilot to solve this for me.
And?
Because I wanted answers.
Yeah,
I didn't want to come in blank.
And?
So rather than it be time, it could be like, you've only got so many attempts. So you limit it in other ways, not time. So we're doing anecdotes next.
Yes.
Preferably the shorter ones because I'm awful at reading from those.
Okay, do you want to do those two, and then I'll do that long one, and then you can bring it home? Sure. Yeah? Then we can close it off, and I reckon we'll finish at 42. Maybe slightly beyond that, but yeah.
We got a few to rattle through, but they're rattleable.
I think because we've put this activity in, I think we've like tied out their brain, and then we can just throw some stuff at them, and then got about 2 minutes, everyone. I will be picking on people that haven't spoken yet, so be ready. Because they want it. They want it too much. I want that table, I want the 2 tables at the back. Standing by the screen is kind of Okay, you've got 1 minute, everyone.
Next time you die, you're going back here.
The designer and me is...
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. Like, have you noticed that I don't want to look at the screen? I don't want to
really grating.
The bit of me that's a perfectionist when it comes to my decks and my presentations finds this really upsetting.
In hindsight, I should have checked.
Yeah, but I checked it before I left and it was fine.
No, it's because it's translated to Google Docs. Because they did that after Canva.
Yes. Yeah, because I saw it in PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay, everyone, start wrapping up your list, design, bullet points. Okay. I'm not even going to tell people to put their hands up because we're going to this table at the back because they haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Cool, because I haven't written anything down. Nice. So, redesigning Overcooked, you get rid of the timer and you make it about efficiency and getting it correct with minimal wastage. So part of Overcooked, you want to fill all the recipes in the right amount of time, and the more recipes you get within your 3 to 4 minutes, the better your score. But you change that to be you still do the recipes, but you do it without screwing up, without cooking too many chips, without burning any steaks, without binning anything, without setting the kitchen on fire. And so every mess up you do is what loses you some points instead of just running out of time. And then you've still got the 10, 15 recipes that come in, you still complete them, but it's about you getting them perfect rather than you messing up the kitchen and chaos and panic, which gets rid of the timer and you end up being far more, it's much slower paced and you can take your time to get it right.
So I think this is a really good example where having a brief like this, having a persona like this, and putting it in the context of a real game, come up with a new game mode for the game that sounds pretty good to me. So about anyone else?
Just wanted to follow up on that. Effectively, the concept of get it perfect is mobile design, mobile game design, because that is the whole concept of ever since Angry Birds, the 1-star, 2-star, 3-star progression system of all you've got to do is get some kind of completion and you can progress, but for the completionists, for the people who are like that by motivated, 3 stars, you know, to actually to perfect something is the motivator that keeps them coming back.
There's one extra for Overcooked, and it's the game doesn't necessarily tell you the recipes you've already discovered that you can do. When you get into late game, I think you can forget how to do certain things. So having all the recipes that you could possibly cook in that kitchen is listed somewhere on the screen, so that you don't forget how to do the funny onion soup broth because it's chopped first and then boiled, not boiled and then chopped. Either one doesn't matter, and just having it listed, so you don't have to remember every little step because it's all listed for each one of you.
So I'll be a dick and be like, that sounds like a really cluttered screen now. I just want to cook my food.
Don't have 7 recipes per room with a million ingredients. Drop it down. Make it so that there's 3 or 4 you can stick on the side. And you know, each order doesn't need to take the whole top of the screen. You need one order, your next order, or the next 2 orders. You can swap them around to the recipes on the top, and then the orders down the side.
I look forward to the next iteration. Right. Thank you so much. Really great. And then finally, our table at the back.
Yeah, to be honest, we hit on a very similar approach to what you did, which is the first thing we talked about was keeping input minimal and kind of making it action and reaction. So you pick up a thing and the things you can do with it are highlighted, and you keep those as minimal as possible. So you keep the chains of events simple. We also went into the mobile thing a little bit, but we were looking more into games in the realm of like Candy Crush Saga or Toon Blast, which I don't necessarily endorse, having worked in mobile, but there's something these games do is 2 things actually. One is having an action economy, like a numerical timer, rather than a timed countdown. So you either have a certain number of moves to finish a puzzle, or in the Angry Birds thing, you have as many as you want, but the fewer you do it in, the better your score is going to be. And that gives the thinking player time to think and something to think about. There's always animation pop going on the screen, so it doesn't feel boring if you're just staring at it. If you don't take an action for X length of time as well, there's like a highlight or a tooltip which suggests something you can do, maybe not the best thing you can do, but something you can do just in case somebody is so tired of thinking that they don't want to think, like, or that they're stuck and becoming frustrated. Just an option to kind of take that away as well. But I think games like Toon Blast actually do that really well. They also very gradually introduce variations on a theme for a very simple mechanic. So as you get down every like 15, 30 levels or something like that, the environment will change, and then one block will require more input to break, or you'll unlock one new power-up. So you're kind of slowly learning to use the things that are already there, and then just gradually introduce different versions of it so it doesn't become boring.
I mean, I want to play that game. I'll put my hands up to it, right? Like, I personally struggle with a handheld controller game. Like, I really struggle with a PlayStation, Xbox, things like that, because the thing of being on a controller, looking at a screen, I really struggle with it, which is why I love having a Switch, because I used to love my Game Boy, and I love Plants vs. Zombies on my phone, right? I like evil animals, right? It's the vibe, right? But the point is, I know you spoke about mobile games and you said slightly controversial, but I think we kind of need to move away from that, because as a device, as a medium, mobile games draw people in more. It's a more accessible mode of gaming. Majority of people will have a touchscreen phone, within reason, a touchscreen phone, more than they're likely to have a very expensive Xbox or PlayStation. So making your game accessible for mobile is probably going to be a bigger success indicator than creating a game solely for PC or solely for an Xbox or a PlayStation.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have
like
Mark
So, thank you so much. So first of all, give yourself a round of applause for completing all of those groups. Well done. I know you were not expecting to come to work. So before we move into the final bit, and we've got about 10, 12 minutes, give or take, yeah? I think. First of all, how did you find that activity? Just out of interest, like just going through the different briefs and designing, redesigning, iterating on things. How was it for you?
I had a me problem.
Oh, I love a me problem.
I did a personal bias twice, and I don't like it. On the first two challenges, when you're like, make input accessible for a 2D fighting game, for example, I was like, those two things aren't conducive to each other. And I sort of challenged the problem at first rather than trying to solve it, and I don't like that. Like, because I've been in this industry a while and I've spent a long time playing games, I'm kind of, there's that element always of, this is the way things have always been. That doesn't mean it's the way things should be. But when you try and take a point of reference that's ulterior to a 2D fighting game, like, especially when you have the examples on screen like Street Fighter, Tekken, that kind of thing, my mind goes straight into how can I take it specifically Street Fighter or Tekken and make it not that. And it's very difficult to kind of get over that initial barrier of, well, maybe it just doesn't have to be this way, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Really, it's not always easy to admit that you're biased in certain cases. Thank you. I think everyone suffers from that. I work with developers that have exactly the same issue. They just don't get why people can't just use something, right? So it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost repeating what Mike said, but it really highlighted to me that these games, these experiments for these people with disabilities or impairments have to be designed like that from the scratch, because, you know, when I thought about the previous example of the fighting game, I was like, well, trying to mod Tekken to that is nigh impossible. Like, it's not going to work, it's not going to be fun, so it's easier to actually think about a 2D fighting game that is specifically designed for that purpose.
Love that, and lo and behold, the market just opened up for you.
It's not necessarily an issue, but I kind of am curious about something. So, in order to make a game accessible, for example, we are making a 2D fighter, for example, for people with arthritis, and we make it so that we kind of remove like what a lot of fighting games are based on. For example, a lot of fighting games require quick thinking. Like that's the fun part of the game, according to a lot of people. And I was wondering, at what point does it become like a different genre entirely if we make it more strategy based, which allows for more time to think? But does that constitute a fighting game anymore?
I think there's space for all sorts, much in the same way there's space for all sorts of gamers. I mean, did anyone predict that Balatro would be as successful as it was? It's a card game, okay? It is a card game. I know because I had to watch him play it on the flight. It is a card game, okay? But it's so much more than that, I think, is what you would all tell me. One final comment from how you found that activity. I'm so sorry, I'm still in the middle. It's unhelpful. Any other comments on how you found that activity? No, you've spoken enough.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that though about changing the genre and changing the type of game. So one thing that we did discuss is that actually fundamentally, like in the last example, like Overcooked, the time pressure and that cognitive load is actually what a lot of people find joy in.
Yeah.
But you can give everyone the control over that cognitive load. So instead of removing the time load, you give the player the ability to control it. And you can do that with a lot of games that I've seen where actually within difficulty settings, within all those settings, you make it as open as possible for the user to adjust the game to the fun level that they want to play it at without having to break the genre. So that was just another aspect which hadn't come up.
I love it, just the fun level. Please trademark that for yourself. So, because I am mindful of time, thank you so much everyone. We are going to whiz through, so I'm just going to do all of these. So, and then we're going to read some stories to you. So, Chris, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, so I think a lot of these were probably already mentioned in your solutions. We have gone away and compiled a list of easy wins that you can do for these different disabilities. So for motor disabilities, ability to rebind keys, I think that was mentioned, switch between keyboards and controllers or input device, I guess. Avoiding repetitive inputs and adjustable sensitivity, all great ways to account for that.
And I think as someone that has, I have very bad eyes, I think, and also just because, and I would actually recommend, if you want to see how this is done well, do look at your mobile banking site, specifically, I shouldn't say the names, but look at mobile banking, and they do a lot of really good work here, especially on websites. A lot of websites, and I know I said it before, supermarkets are amazing for this. Like, if you want to figure out how to do good ARIA text, if you want to figure out how tabbing should look, go to your supermarket sites. They're some of the best in the business. E-commerce, a little bit, but yeah, I still think supermarkets do it the best. And I think when we're talking about auditory, I actually don't know a lot about auditory cues. I feel like, Chris, you know a bit more about audio stuff than me.
So yeah, I mean, this is for compensating for lack of hearing.
Yeah.
I guess something that I've put in here from my industry, high comprehension iconography, which means iconography that can be comprehended by the largest range of people. There are ISO standards for this. If you wanted to do ISO testing on your icons, it's very, very straightforward to do. Highly recommended.
Thank you for that, Anna. Sorry for interrupting. I'm stuffing that with
My guy, please.
Because that gets requested because obviously I work a lot with disabled people, like for example, almost staff is disabled, differently disabled, so that's why we're arranging. But I'm the only one, and my group wouldn't really want high competent iconography, and I'm deaf, so like I wear hearing aids. But my colleagues will both say that they're both who are either cognitive, like have challenges, or also visually impaired. They were like, oh, what high comprehensive like iconography could they like that better than I would? Like I wouldn't really be bothered by it. So it's fascinating that you put in that section for audio. But again, this is why disability and accessibility is fascinating, because it's so diverse. That's why it's so annoying, because it's so diverse.
I think a lot of these can probably spread across a few of them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could argue that when we've got the cognitive stuff, you could almost have lower information density in motor, right? To save time that they would need to read, to understand, and to go through the content. But obviously we will be sharing the deck afterwards, so this is just a really nice checklist for you to have, to play around with. These things are not set in stone, okay? People are as wonderful and varied as beyond the things that we've written down here. And then finally, current laws. Won't spend too much time here. Please look these up. Please do your homework. We love a game that is legally compliant, is all I will say.
And just to add to this, this is the bottom. This isn't the target. You should be aiming for much higher than the laws.
What? You're saying we shouldn't be AA certified? What? And then these are game-specific ones. So GAG, the Game Accessibility Guidelines. Hands up, who's heard of this one?
Good.
A few of you, very nice. And hands up, who's heard of WCAG? Okay, slightly more people. So I would say that if we were to make a Venn diagram, get really familiar with these. The irony is that most accessibility guidelines aren't actually accessible themselves, which is why I struggle to read them. But I think there are certain, if you want gold standard application of WCAG, go and look at a government website. Look at the application of the padding, look at the white space, look at the language that they've used, look at the color, look at how they have different formats available. Your government websites are gold standard, if I'm honest with you, is all I will say on that. And then just apply it to games.
Let you say that, because like a lot of game developers do the thing where they'll look at other games rather than looking at what is actually really good accessibility, which is not in games, it's outside games.
Right?
Yeah.
Look, I love to cross-pollinate across industries, because just because your industry isn't doing it doesn't mean no one's doing it. It just means you haven't looked hard enough. And then Xbox accessibility guidelines, who's seen those? Yes, yes, yes. And can I play that? Anyone heard of that site? Okay. I mean, I don't know too much about it. I had a quick look at it before we came here today. It looks interesting. Like with all things, pinch of salt, worth looking at. Don't hang your whole kind of accessibility strategy on it, right? Is what I will always say with these things. And then accessibility wins. So we always like to finish on a positive note. So who knows about the accessibility wins of The Last of Us 2? Most people in the room. So the reason I know about this, not just because of Pedro, because I mean, come on, Pedro. Aside from him, when this came out, it was, I think, Rob, you started playing it during the pandemic, and then me and my team at work, because we had nothing else to do, we actually started looking into the accessibility controls that Naughty Dog had put into it. They are immense. If you can be bothered, go to the Naughty Dog site and look at all the things that they did for their controller to make it accessible. I won't go through what you can see on the screen because you can see that, but they actually basically made it open source. Like, you can go, you can read it, you can copy it. They've given it to you. It's amazing. And then Chris?
Yeah, that was cool here. Forza Horizon 5, I think, was first to introduce British Sign Language and American Sign Language to all of their cutscenes and things. And one I'm particularly fond of, Diablo 4. I came back to playing this a few weeks ago on the PlayStation 5, and as soon as you boot up the game, you go straight to the accessibility settings with a screen reader on. So it's so easy to set these things up. And if you haven't heard a screen reader, go YouTube and listen to like the Diablo 4 audio cue and screen reader. They're really quite impressive.
Nice. And right, before we do this, Chris and I are going to read you a couple of stories because we found these on Reddit. I may or may not have found these earlier today. Off you go, Chris.
Yeah, we'll try and keep this quick. So the first one, lost my mind at Ori and Will of the Wisps because I couldn't wall jump due to my stupid hands. Thanks, multiple sclerosis. Second one, in general, the PS5 first-party titles usually have great accessibility options like Ratchet & Clank and Rift Apart or Spider-Man 2. On the indie side, Celeste, where you can adapt the flow of the game to your necessities.
I have a mild brain injury. It affects my reaction times, so it might not be the best one-to-one for your needs, but I'm with you on platforming being a difficulty. Some of my faves. Control and Alan Wake 2 were fantastic for me. Very customizable to get a good challenge while not being impossible. Control has some platform wall scaling things, but there's an ability you can upgrade so that the main character can just fly. It also has a really in-depth menu of access options so you can dial in what you need. Assist option, damage reduction, etc. For example, lowering the damage I took helped me because I'm not the best at dodging anymore. But I kept my damage, aim, and stuff the same for the most part to keep it a good challenge. I love how custom I could dial it in. I'll do a little bit more. Sony overall has been great. Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West has access options, but the game inherently has ways to take down creatures with thinking and planning ahead instead of just hitting and dodging, like traps, elemental damage, environmental dangers, etc. Bring it in.
Last couple, I can only use one hand, and that one also doesn't work very well. And things that I like in games in terms of accessibility are button remapping, random difficulty settings. For example, in Hogwarts Legacy, you can make the fights easier, but keep the puzzles difficult. I would like the ability to skip quests, since there are lots of games where I can do 90% of the stuff, but there are a couple of missions I can't do, and I would like to still be able to finish the game. Also, of course, things like auto-aim are nice.
Those were all real stories. I don't know how many of you go to the Reddit Disability Gamers forum, but I recommend that you do because they're all public, so obviously I took them. But I thought these are real stories, these are real people, and the games that you design are for people like this, people that want to play, derive a lot of joy from playing, and by not creating games and experiences, you are actually removing them of that opportunity. So, conclusions.
Yeah, one that I like doing in my work, obviously not games, but trying games in accessibility mode, I think is a great way of learning what others are doing and things that you could kind of implement yourself.
We did the second one tonight, so I won't spend too much time on that. Playtest with a diverse range of users. I'll say it again, you are not your players. And we already spoke about WCAG and GAG. So that is us done. And thank you, because you've been an amazing audience. You've been so game to do all of our activities and make eye contact with me, even though you knew it wouldn't be a good time for you. Why are you nodding? Like, why are you nodding so vigorously at me? So I think we have literally a few minutes for questions, if you have any.
That's a good yell idea, but we might.
No, we're not doing that. Stop trying to yell.
No, I'm just interested because obviously you've both been very, very honest about saying we're not from games, but we're going to tell you things and help you understand accessibility. So is there anything in your industry that you love around accessibility that you would love games to do, or whether that's, you know, for example, DSL or something like that?
You go. Oh, do you want to? You go.
I was just going to say the automotive industry is terrible for accessibility, so no. I think the banking world is much better.
Okay. Great question. The thing that we've noticed is that, especially with younger people, dark mode. So being able to play, being able to look at your banking apps, regardless of I can say this because it doesn't matter which banking.
Dark mode.
Right? So dark mode is definitely the one. And also the ability to resize. So this is very mobile specific, but being able to resize is a very specific thing. And I'm very lucky that I work on a very accessibility forward team. It's something that we bake in. We partner with an organization. Everything we do is tested. And I don't just mean the actual functionality. We also test our copy. So we make sure that our copy is pitched at the right level. So for anyone that thinks that banks speak in a certain way, we don't really do that anymore because it's not accessible. I mean, there are certain things I have no control over, but in our apps, in our website, we have to be very accessible. So I think the thing that maybe I think games would benefit from bringing from other industries is a level of thought and detail that isn't just about the game play, but the actual game experience. It isn't just, oh, if I swing my sword this way, it has this effect. It's actually at the point at which I log into the game, do I understand what is happening? Do I already know what to expect? Do I already know how this is going to make me feel? Like, do I already want to stay and play this game for a bit longer? Like, I think there are a lot of organisations that put a lot of money into that in a way that a lot of games don't. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, so many.
Trying to think how to phrase this. How much do you think the industry needs a kind of a stick rather than a carrot in order to, you know, with your industry it's obviously quite heavily regulated. Any failure to comply will end up in legal action and that kind of thing. Whereas with games, other than with CPA and a few things that other startups have come along for the game chat, gameplay experience is entirely, it's a Wild West, it's free for all.
I think this is not a great answer for you, great answer for you. The automotive industry is always pushed forwards by the regulations. We have got so many regulations in the automotive industry. We have so little freedom in what we can actually do that a lot of my job is just to make sure we meet regulations. If we don't meet regulations, we can't sell cars. If we don't sell cars, we lose our jobs. And yeah, I mean, an example of that, if you get into a modern car today and you go over the speed limit, it will beep at you. It's like an overspeed warning. That isn't because car companies want to do that. That's because they have to do that in Europe. So in the automotive industry, we are really pushed by the regulation, and it's, yeah, like as you described. I think it would benefit a lot because when you see a new regulation come out, a lot of people, because of money, will probably aim for the minimum. And if you're always aiming for the minimum, then you're never going to be advancing it. So, yeah, I think that would be a good thing.
I'll just add to it. I think there's a lot of beauty to be had in constraints. Some of the best things have been made by people that have very little wiggle room, because you get more creative at the things that you can and can't do. I think a lot of indie games, I think, fall into that category. And if I'm honest, regulations are there to protect our consumers, they're there to protect us. And I think it's a very specific type of person that doesn't look at regulations and think, okay, this is an opportunity for me to do something a bit different, and instead they look at it as a limitation, because those regulations are there to make things more accessible for people. And by accessible, I mean it in the very broadest sense of the term. The lovely gentleman over there.
Thank you. So I have quite severe dyslexia, and dark mode and especially high contrast mode is a lifesaver for me. However, in a game, it looks really ugly. So how high on priority is like making accessibility settings also still pretty so that you can enjoy the game?
Oh, that is an argument we have at work all the time, and it is a constant tug of war between our accessibility specialists, our designers, our developers, and our product owners. And my thing back to you would be, is everything can be made to look nice. It's a case of going through the prototypes and iterating, because sometimes we just haven't found the solution yet. That doesn't mean the solution doesn't exist, because a few years ago, very few banking apps had dark mode, and now it's a given that you have dark mode, or majority of banks are literally building it as I talk to you right now, right? And I think when you say it makes the game look ugly, I would challenge the team that is saying it makes it look ugly to say, well, why aren't you building better code to make it work for these specific conditions? Like I said, the best things come out of constraints. It's a great question.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, have you seen our cars? I mean, you probably worked on what company I work for. Law and luxury principles.
Volkswagen.
Yeah, so we face that challenge every day, and it does come down to building, testing, and putting it in front of those people and saying, do you really think this works? Can you really read this? And making sure you get that diverse user set to do the testing. You're not just testing in your office with a load of people that play games all the time. You go out and test it with a load of people who maybe not play games so often, or have these disabilities. I know that can be really challenging in industries where you're very secretive or very IP protected. We've got that issue as well. But yeah, you've just got to find ways of getting the data to then present back and say, no one can actually read this thing. We can't sell it. So we're going to have to change it at the end. It's going to cost a bunch of time to do.
Always bring it back to money. Always, 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 always. Say, it's always like, by not doing this now, we lose X amount later. By building it there, we're going to lose X amount. We won't hit that delivery date, and then we're going to lose X amount of money. I know that sounds super cold, and I know it sounds very weird to hear someone talk about empathy and disabilities, but then they talk about money. But that is how to sell these things. It is how to make very specific people who are so far removed from the building of these things to make them understand why it should be integrated into your build process. I think you had a question.
Yeah.
And then I think we have time for one more, and then we'll probably have to wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a sort of a personal anecdote and follow up the question. So my uncle is he's suffering from seizures. So that kind of affected his cognitive abilities as well. So he's having a hard time understanding when there's too many information on the screen. So he uses actually visual tools meant for people with visual impairments. I was thinking, did you realize if something meant for another group helped a different one during the process? Sorry, I worded it. I hope you get it.
I think, that's accessibility in a nutshell. There's loads of things. So I I think for dyslexia, I think being able to resize text. So originally that was made for older people who had vision impairments, but then more studies were done and it actually worked out really well for people. Sorry, I keep pointing, I'm so sorry. For people that have dyslexia. And that's one case where it was designed for one population, but it worked well for another population. There are lots more, like, discrete, dark mode is obviously for if you're vision impaired, but then they've done studies and it's actually better for everyone. I hate it, but it's apparently, it is better for everyone to look at things in dark mode.
I mean, something outside of software, completely ramps rather than stairs. They can work for everyone. And obviously inherently accessible.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, and yeah. Let's make that our final question because time is ticking on.
Do you have any patents that you wish were patented? Because EA used to patent their ping system for Apex Legends, but they recently in the last 5 years, they made some accessibility patents free and royalty free for everyone to use. So do you know of any instances of accessibility things that have been patented and that you wish weren't?
I don't know, man. Like, that's a great question, and I wish I could answer it, but I can't. I feel like you would probably have a better answer than me.
No, like you, like that's legal eagles people thing.
I guess my question back to you would be is, what would you like to see made open and not behind the paywall?
I'm going to go with like interface layouts and because it's very it's half of it is kind of copyrighted. This is how our interface looks. At some point, the interface becomes standard for the game genre. Like RTS games have a very kind of standard interface. You've got things at the bottom with a mini map and a top bar, and then like technology trees in strategy games tend to be a certain way, and skill trees are often very a certain way. But I know that some games have patented this is our way of doing things, and like you can't copy our visual reward tree because somebody patented different forms of battle pass.
I think it's memory. I don't need the mic, let's just shout it.
No, you do need the mic. Thank you.
Yes, no need. I was thinking about vowel layers, like, sort of like dialogue thing, and usually it gives you a prompt of, oh, it's a humorous thing, or it's a, angry thing, and let's see, I think that thing that you can't really just use that design. But that's actually really good accessibility to tell people, who might not get terminology, to terrible things, to give you the hint of like what it is, and the understanding of what that dialogue is a very useful thing for a lot of people, and that's kind of, guarded behind, something that's annoying with all these design patterns. So I think that there is a lot of probably really good accessibility things like cut off from you, it makes you an even better like designer and developer and not have to use them because somebody else went, no, that's ours, no one else can use that. And that's really annoying.
What I will say, just because you said design patterns, there are lots of industries that share their design patterns online. And I don't just mean games, but quite a few, not a few, but there's quite a few, I'm trying to think, quite a few banks do it. Chase share their design system online, it's really cool, they talk through all their iconography. Monzo, they share their content design, what they aim to do. It's just a case of looking, and I think with accessibility, I think you have to get quite creative and look at different industries. So some of my favourite stuff comes from the RNIB, so the Royal National Institute for the Blind. They do some very cool things on their social media, but also their guidelines, things like that. They recently consulted with EastEnders on a recent storyline where a child was born blind. So I think the thing I would recommend is look beyond your industry. Look at other examples where things are being done really well, because the best things are usually copied, not created from scratch, normally.
Gov.uk as well.
Yeah, but I've already spoken about Gov.uk. Yeah.
Worth reiterating.
No, it's a good one. And I will say, there are resources, it's just a case of looking. They're not on our deck, because I didn't want to teach you all to suck eggs. Right, that is it from us tonight. I just want to say, if anyone wants more UX conversation, do feel free to join Leamington UX, my lovely little group. We're going to go on summer hiatus for the rest of July and August, but we'll be back in September. So if you want to join and you have ideas for talks, I would love to have you. We're a little group compared to game dev, so I'm always looking for more members. And yeah, thank you so much for tonight. You've been amazing. And yeah, have a lovely rest of your night.
Yep, I've got a few closing words. So firstly, thank you so much, Natasha and Chris. I think this was probably the most interactive talk that we've had, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. And then, obviously, in case this is your first meetup, feel free to join our Discord. We send out most of the notifications that when we've got events coming up. Meetup, obviously, that will also give you a ping every time we release an event, and it also is going to add you to our sort of mailing list, which means that if we've got any news, if we're looking for example, things like some event, we've looked for volunteers and all of that, sometimes we post that on there as well. So yeah, that is the general where you can find us. And yeah, and I think that is all for today. So generally, Asha and Chris's brains for a little longer, that is perfectly fine. Do keep in mind that last drinks at the bar is at 9:30, so you've got about 20 minutes to grab some drinks, and we need to be out by 10. And yeah, I think that is all from me. Thank you everyone for being here, and yeah, I hope to see you again soon.